The reality is that everybody hates lawyers until they need one.
Sometimes when you're driving down the road all by yourself, you begin to hear a voice that tells you need to look around, pay attention. Maybe something isn't quite right. That voice is me. It's the voice of Gord. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the show. You would have heard that clip at the top there from my guest, Mr. Grant Lawson, an attorney from Wyoming who specializes in defending those who have been involved in wrecks caused by trucks. He's one of the best in the business. Previous guest of the show. Some of his commentary is in my book. I wanted to get him back on to discuss the Montgomery versus Caribe decision from the Supreme Court here a few weeks back. We recorded this, I think early in June. It took us a little while to get things lined up. Such as the life of a podcaster. It's all about the schedule and when people are available. We do this for free. Nobody pays us, and I hope you enjoy it as such with that in mind. Wanted to editorialize a little bit here before we get rolling. And wish everybody a belated happy Independence Day. I'm recording this intro and releasing the show on Tuesday, July 7th. Independence Day was on Saturday. I had a very nice time away from this computer and my phone. Camping trip with my wife and my in-laws. It was very good, but got home Sunday night. Monday morning, I flip open my laptop before going to work, and oh wow, look at all the carnage and chaos still going on our roads, and innocent Americans being killed, and the guilty parties once again. Insourced labor from other countries who don't want to play by the rules. The government gives them work authorizations they don't deserve. Haven't bothered their asses to learn English. CDLs canceled or non-existent, insurance canceled, and these guys are just still out there, still parasitizing the American trucking industry and are a grave threat to everybody in the country. And yeah, I had a whole stack of those on Monday, including a trooper down in the great state of Pennsylvania. This is all very upsetting, and I just wanted to comment on that before the show got going here, because this is war. That's the only sort of way I can describe it. We are at war. We are being fought against on all sides, most importantly by corporate America, the people that run places like Amazon and Walmart and most of Fortune 500 America, the United States Postal Service. All of these people who use large quantities of trucking would rather not pay guys like me. I am now 3 years off the road, full disclosure, laid off from my last job July 5th, 2023, and it seems pointless to me to get back into the truck, given, the government wants to surveil me. They want me to drive an ugly plastic piece of shit, underpay me, hold me up. They won't do anything about detention, and then I'm risking my life like everybody else. And the government here owns a lot of this. The previous administration for letting so many of these people in. Maybe the Trump administration too for some of it. All the states. Everybody who's supposed to be in charge is not doing their jobs, and they don't seem to give a shit. And this is going to keep happening. And Grant's going to continue to have more business. He talks in the show here about that famous crash in Green River, Wyoming a little while back. Turns out that the guy that caused that, also illegal immigrant. He's on the lam. He's been charged with a number of felonies related to killing a bunch of people in that crash. And it just keeps happening. It keeps happening. It keeps happening. And it keeps happening. And I don't know about you, listeners of the Voice of Gord podcast, but I'm pretty fucking sick of it. And we need to do something. I'm going to keep talking about it until the situation is resolved. I mean, that's all I can do. I don't work for the government. I don't, I have nothing. All I have is you guys listening to my show and people that read my written output. Speaking of which, I just had an article published at Commonplace, which is the Substack of American Compass, a think tank in D.C. I write for occasionally. Wonderful people over there. My new piece is on, looking at 1 year of enforcement on this, trying to clean it up. I don't think it's enough. The whole point of the article is that it's become apparent that the English language proficiency enforcement is sort of theater. Go read it all. I have links to it in the show notes. Secretary Duffy and FMCSA Administrator Bars have inherited quite a mess. I don't envy them, but I think they need to get serious. I know that those guys are in charge. Being in charge means selecting the right people, and I don't think there's anybody at the FMCSA who is the right person to clean up the trucking industry. And given what we're seeing out on the roads right now, I'm correct. Like the problem is still happening. It's still happening at scale, and something needs to give. And I think the FMCSA needs to clean house, and they need to get serious. So does Duffy. So do all of our state enforcement agencies. And I don't want to hear about another young person or police officer or family get destroyed again because this country can't keep fucking idiots off of the road and won't stop issuing CDLs to incompetent, illiterate imbeciles who aren't even supposed to be here. I make no bones about this. Yes, corporate America is in charge. This is all of their doing ultimately. It might sound like I'm being harsh to the people brought here to do this. Many of them are, indentured servants or were brought here by human traffickers, and, we can have an argument about whether it's their fault or not, but they also have agency. They also can look around and put two and two together and realize that not any Americans are going to their countries to drive truck. All of this traffic is in one direction to their benefit. And, it's the sort of height of entitlement to think you can show up in someone else's country illegally and just take somebody's job and drive around in a very safety-sensitive job with not a care nor concern in the world about the people around you on the road. And I want these people gone, and I make no bones about it. And if you don't like it, too bad. What a privilege it is for you to sit behind your computer or behind your stereo and listen to me or call me names or call me a racist or call me whatever while people are dying and our industry is parasitized and all of these negative consequences take place. And very, very few people are talking about it with any kind of seriousness required of this situation. And those people who are poisoned by just absolutely bonkers leftist identity politics nonsense and can't understand what's really going on here, I just don't have any time for them anymore. And too bad for you. All right, that rant out of the way. As always, you can send me an email, tell me I'm wrong, call me names, praise me, ask questions, give suggestions, say, hey, you need to fix this one thing. Happy to hear about corrections for anything. Gordylocks@protonmail.com. There will also be links in the show notes to all of Grant's places you can find him online and his legal counsel. If you haven't yet, you can go get yourself a copy of my book, End of the Road, Inside the War on Truckers, available from my publishers, Creed and Culture Books. So head on over to creedandculture.com. You can listen to this voice for 12 hours as I narrate my very own book. It's done pretty well. Got me a few places. You might have seen my interview on Tucker Carlson here last month. So yeah, go check the book out. People really dig it. And, I talk about what we're discussing today and more, and the history of how we got here. And I think you will really enjoy it. All right, that's enough out of me. Let's get to Mr. Grant Lawson. All right, good day, everybody. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Voice of Gord podcast. I'm Gord, and this is my voice. The other voice you're going to hear today is a returning guest to the show. Um, a wonderful attorney and somebody who defends truck drivers and, like me, wants to see the industry improve. And he's going to offer some commentary on the recent Montgomery versus Caribe SCOTUS decision, especially in the wake of he and his kind being sort of held up as these potential enemies to everybody and a problem. But I think he's actually a solution. So, welcome back to the show, Mr. Grant Lawson.
Hey, thanks so much, Gord. Pleasure to be here.
I appreciate you coming back, sir. I've been dying to talk to someone about this because that was real hot news here a couple weeks ago, and it's actually a bit of an earthquake, because this decision means that brokers are now liable for the carriers they choose, should some incident befall the carrier or some innocent person involved with them. And as always, everybody likes to invoke the Billboard attorney as some specter haunting the trucking industry that's going to come
Right.
along and crash some brokerage with a huge settlement. And I always try and be skeptical and try and offer people their own side of the story. So I'm dying to hear what you think about this, sir.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I mean, landmark decision. In this day and age, anything coming out of the Supreme Court that's a 9-0 victory or win or decision. I mean, it's almost unattainable or unbelievable, I guess. So yeah, for the entire U.S. Supreme Court to come down on one side of this just shows how right we were this whole time in fighting that look the safety exception, right? The ability for states to have control over safety, and when it comes to interstate commerce, or the F quad A is the common referred to law that we're dealing with. It's reassuring that look, uh, we still have states' rights. We still have the states still have the ability to make safety a priority when it comes to motor vehicles and travel on our roads. And it was the right decision all along. And so it was very heartening, very, very helpful for a lot of people out there who were suffering, being in limbo on whether they'd get justice, whether they could make the industry safer, and all of the things that we're here to talk about today.
You mentioned states' rights. Perhaps you could give a little bit of a technical breakdown. I've tried to talk to people about this. I am not an attorney, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to read the entire decision. I've read other people's analysis of it. But could you give us a sort of technical breakdown of what went on with the case and
Yeah,
and the ruling on it?
yeah. I mean, I'm gonna try and not make it too boring, or people glazing over listening to it. Right, just try to keep it interesting. So, basically, when Congress enacted this law, and we're just going to call it F Quad A because we don't need to spell it out every single time. But basically, it's this law dealing with the federal government usurping or preempting states from making laws or doing things that are contrary to interstate travel and commerce, right? Especially in the context of the trucking industry. So, bottom line is this: is that look, the exception for safety is that Congress said, well, when it has to do with safety, states being able to make rules and laws that apply to safety to their own citizens when it deals with the trucking industry, for example, that they still have that right. They still have the ability to do that. They can hold hold trucking companies, brokers, whatever, accountable for negligence, when they're negligent, and that the federal law did not prevent states from making those laws to make things safer. So we have safety. That's about the easiest breakdown and dumbing down of it as possible.
Brokers were the way I was sort of watching it, like in the lead up to the ruling, and as I was sort of watching discussion about about it before it came down. A lot of people on the broker and intermediary side of the equation, right? So, brokers and 3PLs, they often handle the logistics for large shippers and take on the job of finding dozens or hundreds or thousands of trucks for all the loads for their customers, right? There's a lot of scale here, right?
Right.
It's C.H. Robinson's like a $15 billion a year business. And their attitude towards this was that, well, if the FMCSA certifies a carrier, that's good enough for us. They were sort of pawning the responsibility for vetting off on the government when everybody in the industry knows the FMCSA is a pretty small organization. They have very limited capacity to do enforcement. They have limited capacity to actually check on motor carrier registrations. They're supposed to check on new carrier entrance to the market with an audit within 18 months, and they're way behind on that. Like, they can't
Right.
possibly keep up with this stuff. So it always sort of struck me as hollow. The business community and sort of libertarian type people like myself and yourself, we often, rightly accuse the government of kind of being incompetent in many ways, right? They
Yeah.
do serve a role. They are supposed to do things, but they often don't do them very well. So if the brokers understand that the FMCSA, isn't watching the henhouse very well, then it sort of behooves you to be extra careful about stuff. But they are not.
I mean, yeah, you nailed it. All right, you nailed it. So, I mean, here's how we got to where we are today, Gordon. You know this is that it became the Wild West. The trucking industry became the Wild West. We had this explosion. I mean, an absolute explosion in the number of motor carriers, new motor carriers, and the explosion of these fraudulent truck driving schools, and the number of basically, inept, fraudulent truck drivers that became part of the trucking industry market in the last, let's just call it 10 years, but especially the last 5 6 years, right? COVID really accelerated all this, let's say. But bottom line is that we have this explosion of the number of motor carriers, new trucking companies, and drivers who have no business being able to have a CDL and get behind the wheel of the truck, that entered into the market, the trucking industry. And so, of course, we when you have that sort of situation where there's a lack of control, a lack of authority, a lack of policing, there's no way the FMCSA could keep up. There's no way they are. I mean, they would need. I don't know. I don't know if there's been a study done, but we know that you know 10, 20, 50 times the budget that FMCSA currently has, and that same number, 10, 50, however many times the number of employees, enforcement officers, people who could actually be involved to police the industry and make sure that we've got company, motor carriers getting proper safety ratings. I mean, to get an inspection done, all of those things, there's no way. So this, of course, the Wild West mentality of just got to go, it's like the gold rush, right? The gold rush. And everybody was capitalizing on it, right? Everybody was finding a way to make money off of it. And of course, cutting, whether it was double brokering, triple brokering, quadruple broking, all these things that were happening where everybody's taking a piece of the pie on the way down. And of course, the bottom that is these truck drivers who are, some of them, and I mean, there's slavery, right? Indentured servitude, where they're making pennies on the dollar, while you got brokers taking a big cut, possibly double, triple brokers, brokering going down the line. Everybody's taking a big cut, and you got drivers who are coming in from other countries of the world who yeah, still pennies on the dollar here is better than what they were doing in Eastern Europe or Africa or the Middle East or wherever they
Yeah.
came from. But they were being taken advantage of, right? Because the predatory nature of when there's a lack of control, that there's a lack of policing, so to speak, that man, there was people taking advantage of that, right? Taking advantage of people that were really just like, hey, I'm just trying to make a living. I'm just trying to survive. I'm just trying to maybe send some money back to those in some other part of the world that are starving, where a dollar goes a long damn ways for feeding your family. So, anyways, that's kind of I'll get off my soapbox on it, but that's why we got to where we are today.
Right. So now that we have all of that sort of out of the way, the fear that these brokers and intermediaries have of you guys, of the evil billboard attorney who's gonna sue us into penury if some collision takes place. Um, what's the sort of vibe amongst attorneys and other people you work with in the industry about this, like the fear mongering that goes against you guys, and then also like you're not all just rubbing your hands together here waiting for another collision. I think when we talked before, you said to me that you don't actually want to do your job. You would rather be fishing with your kids or or or
110%.
doing anything else than having to deal with the trauma of a family who lost a loved one in a collision or many loved ones or is experiencing ongoing pain from injuries, and like you have to clean up other people's messes, right? So
Yeah.
like this weird attitude about like living in fear of Grant Lawson and his colleagues. Like, what do you have to say to that on, specifically to the brokers downstream of this decision?
Yeah. I mean, so here it is. I mean, this decision confirms that brokers have a responsibility in this and a part to play in this whole story, right? That it's not just, hey, the next truck crash that happens out there, oh, here we go. It's the broker's going to be liable. What this decision did is confirm that brokers have a duty, right? They have a duty to actually vet these motor carriers, these trucking companies. That it's not just, hey, let's find the bottom of the barrel that'll take this rate, this crap rate or cut down rate where we can make more money. And to hell if they're safe, to hell if they're established, to hell if they're a chameleon carrier, to hell with all of those things. It's actually, hey, look, brokers, if you're going to be the middleman that's going to go out there and find a trucking company that's going to be connected with a shipper, that you're not just, hey, I don't care who it is, as long as I'm making money, I don't give a shit if they're the most dangerous company out there. I will get the job done. No, that's not the way it should be, right? I mean, what's reasonable. Let's talk about what's reasonable. What's reasonable is they actually have some due diligence in saying, well, what's the safety history on this company? Is it somebody that we should be connecting to this shipper, and that we feel good about making money on, that, hey, this is a company that's not just going to put some crackpot behind the wheel and go down the road and drive for 3 days straight on meth and crash and kill and wipe out a family or families. I mean, right, that's what this decision stands for, is that, look, it just means that brokers have to actually do their job. It's not just, hey, we get to sit back. Oh, yep, here's a trucking company for you, shipper. And oh, by the way, we get to make money off that. It's, hey, okay, this trucking company has a safety history. It has complied with all of the federal regs. It's not questionable. It's not a chameleon carrier that popped up from a motor carrier that got shut down or shut itself down because it was so unsafe that it popped up as, a whole new motor carrier. Those things, man. That's really what this comes down to, is that it makes brokers actually have to do their job, right? And it doesn't mean that brokers are just held accountable and every time there's a truck crash. There actually has to be a failure. And for me as a lawyer, and anybody who actually knows this law and does this law knows that they still have to prove the broker was negligent. They did that, which means they did something wrong. Not just, hey, it's a handout, it's a payday for me as a lawyer and for the people that were hurt and killed. That's not how it works. We still have to do our job as lawyers and find out if they failed their duty, failed in what they were responsible for doing. So So I get it. The fear factor is always there, man. Fear is such a powerful drug and tool that's used in all aspects of life. And of course, it's used here because somebody's got to be the boogeyman. There's always got to be a boogeyman. So, yes, I'm the boogeyman.
Grant, I love it. I love it, man. You lean into things, and you're very honest about this stuff, which I appreciate it, and I wanted to have you back. Um, what is so? What does the what are the mechanics of determining a failure on the part of a broker or 3PL or some other kind of intermediary? Like, what would you actually look for amongst their sort of paperwork or documentation or behavior systems as they're trying to find carriers? Like, what is the thing?
Yeah, right. So our handy dandy safer system, right? That is available. That yes, brokers can say, well, had a this carrier had a conditional safety rating or a satisfactory safety rating, right? If we're looking at the basic um, standards or the basic scores, the safer going to safer, and we're getting to basics, we're finding out what the crash history is, the violation history, insurance picture. Those are things that are readily available, free, and of course, us as the lawyers, we're looking at that, but we're also relying upon industry standard experts who know this industry, and will say, "Look, this is what brokers should be looking at and should be doing." Right? I mean, we can say it because we think it as lawyers, but we're not the experts. There's actually experts out there, and I know you know a lot of them. We see them all the time in this, especially now. Everybody wants to be an expert, and there's going to be a lot of work, I'm sure. But there's services out there, right? I mean, Carrier 411, for example, we know all about that. We've got friends in this industry. I think people you probably had on your show, and that we cross paths with, that have services out there, who have websites out there that provide information about carriers, right? And now with this decision, that's a whole new booming industry. That's right. It's a booming industry for those who want to collect information on motor carriers to be able to provide the brokers more of an insight into who these people are, whether they're potentially a chameleon carrier, whether they have a safety history, all of those things, insurance information. So, for us, it's, look, I mean, if I'm putting myself in the shoes of a broker, I got to look at a motor carrier's safety history. What kind of track record do they have? What kind of violations? What kind of FMCSRs out there? The regs that they violated, the crashes that they've been in, the history of what they are and what they've done. So should it make it harder for motor carriers to actually be selected, at least at the forefront? Yeah, you shouldn't just be able to pop up. I should not be able to open start a trucking company, get US DOT authority, FMCSA authority, and by tomorrow I'm all over the load board getting or selected by brokers to haul loads all over the place. That's not the way it should be. There should be a vetting process. There should be inspections. There should be history. There should be proof that people actually are doing their jobs and that they're safe.
I
Because
want to push back on that, just on a
all right,
technical
fair enough.
on a technicality.
Okay,
I understand that inclination. We all want a record of service so that we can prove, hey man, like you've done some things, and there's a paper trail for it. The
sure.
problem sometimes is producing the paper trail. There's some trucking companies out there and owner operators that do their damnedest. They like show up at scales and want to get inspected, and they have a perfect truck and they just get waved through. And that might
Yeah.
happen for years, and they don't have any inspections. They don't have a safety rating, even though they've been in operation. Another
Mm,
thing is, and I'll talk about myself here for a moment. Some of us have decades of experience, but it's not visible to the system. So if I went and opened my own motor carrier, right, I got an MC number, bought a truck, went into business as Gordon McGill Trucking, which I would like to do someday, and then I go out and try and find customers. Yeah, my entity, my motor carrier number has no safety rating because I just started it. But me, Gordon McGill, has got nearly 30 years on the road in 4 different countries with all this experience. So, like,
yeah.
there has to be like an allowance for for people who do have experience and do have records that are not visible to the sort of motor carrier registration system. Like, how do we do that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I agree. So well, look, I don't have all of the answers, and I won't claim that I am I'm only as good as I can be with the information I'm provided and the knowledge that I have. Okay. I think that people like you and others out there who work in this industry, who have experience in this industry, and know the shortcomings and shortfalls of the FMCSA and how we can improve the system, what changes can be made so that if somebody like you wants to go do that there's a element of the FMCSA, for example, that is boom, they're on point with whether it's the inspection or the overhaul or the review of a new motor carrier, and that there's criteria that could be met that then boom gives a helpful green light. Or maybe we get away from government involvement because we all know the problems with government involvement. Maybe there's private industry that can come in, that can be involved with this process to help do this, to help provide the new motor carriers like yourself who want to open up, who actually, the owner, the drivers themselves have incredible history. They're safe, but the new entity that's formed has no history. So there's got to be some ways. I think there's an incredible opportunity for that, especially with private industry. I can't claim to know how that would work, or the best way that would work, but it just seems like it'd be kind of almost common sense that we
Yeah,
could
well,
find a way.
you know how common sense isn't very common. Well,
Yeah,
so I wrote this thing for my Substack after the SCOTUS decision, and I sort of had this idea in the back of my head, right? Like talking about vetting. Everyone's talking about vetting. That's the hot new
right.
term, right? And I remember when I first moved back to North America after traveling for a little while, and my wife likes going to like boutique fancy coffee shops, right? That's her thing.
Yeah.
So, she lived in New York City for 10 years. I get it. So I would go to these places and they always featured photos of the farmers, right? They're all very proud about our fair trade arrangement and our ethically, locally sourced coffee beans from Guatemala or Vietnam or wherever they were getting them from, right? And like
Yeah.
photos of the farmer, photos of the guys in the fields. Like all these coffee shops were very happy and proud to display the people that made their coffee for them, right? It
Yes.
was a
Right.
way of making a connection between the product they were delivering and the people they got it from for their customers. So I've had this idea circulating in the back of my head with this about trucking companies doing the same thing. I know that we have problems with turnover and retention and the fake driver shortage and all the other issues in trucking. But if you're like a small or medium size or even a big trucking company and you want to, like, uh, uh, show yourself in a different way, market yourself in a different way, my idea is this: do the same thing with your drivers. Have some part of your website that says, hey, this is Jim, he's worked for us for 25 years, one of his sons works here. This is Jerry, he's worked in the shop for us for 20 years. This is Laura, she's a trucker for us and she's been working with us for 15 years. And then you talk about like the church groups they're involved with and what they do with their money, or maybe they're like they work part-time on a farm or they do some other stuff in the community. And this driver, when he's not on the road, he coaches baseball. And you just do the thing, and you like the coffee shop, you're listing all of your safe drivers, you're listing their records on the website. All these people we just listed, no speeding tickets, no violations for these years. And you advertise yourself by the people who work for you and who are actually out there, actually exposed to all this Wild West nonsense out on the road, but are still making it happen, still providing a safe record of service. And you highlight those drivers, right? This is my idea. Instead of relying on all these numbers and spreadsheets and government data, advertise the safe drivers you have working for you already, right?
That's a fantastic idea. Humanizing these, I mean, these these people, these heroes, right? I mean, there's our we wouldn't have our American way of life without the trucking industry. We all know that, or at least most of us know that, and everybody should know it. And so I love that idea, and I think you're onto something. I think that right now, from what we've seen, is that uh, that nobody cares because it's a money grab. It's been a money grab. Not I shouldn't say nobody. That's not a fair statement. There is a big part of the trucking industry right now that's it's all about the money grab, and you got four brokers located in four
All over the
countries
place.
I can't even pronounce, and so there's so much of that, and making the trucking industry Americanized again, so to speak. And I know you got some Canadian roots, so I don't mean to exclude you. You know what I mean. But
No problem.
we'll add Canada to that. But
Yeah.
I think that it's a great idea.
On the idea I just presented you, this is another question I have to have Grant answer this for me, right?
Yeah,
So take my idea and let's say something happens. Let's say an incident takes place involving a trucking company who has taken my idea and ran with it, right? So they have the website, they highlight their safe drivers, they do their best to hire only safe drivers, but unfortunately something happens. It may or may not be that driver's fault. We don't know yet. It's being deliberated in court, and that's where you come in, right?
yeah, yeah,
You are defending the trucking company, let's say. You go in front of a jury and you say, "Hey, this trucking company has done their level best to vet their drivers. Look at their list of drivers and their safe records of service. Look at how they've promoted these guys, and like look at this human level concern for the safety of everybody else and for the safety of their own drivers they have by highlighting and prioritizing this type of driver." When you show that to a jury, what does that do to the jury? Does that influence their decision or not?
yeah. So great question. I think so. Let's look at it in maybe three different boxes. So we have a crash. Okay, crash happens. Let's say the truck driver involved in the crash, or one of the truck drivers involved in the crash, because I do a lot of cases where I represent truckers who've been hurt by other truckers, and so or killed by other
And
truckers.
thank you,
So
and thank you for that. Thank you for your service, Grant. This is something I'm going to interrupt. We talked about this the first time you're on, but we're going to repeat it. The billboard attorney, the big bad billboard attorney, is often your friend defending you from the people in the industry who shouldn't be there. Carry on.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So three different boxes in terms of okay, so we got brokers, whether a broker may be liable or responsible, the trucking company, and the driver, right? So let's say a driver, unfortunately, a truck driver causes a crash, fatigued, not paying attention, whatever the reason may be. Okay, they made a mistake and they caused a crash. So, the next question is who's responsible? So the motor carrier is called thing called statutory employer. So whoever the motor carrier responsible for the load is, they're the employer of this driver, even if it's a owner, lease operation, whatever, all those things. Whoever the motor carrier is that is responsible for the load, took the load, is going to be responsible for that driver. And so is the trucking company liable, responsible for the driver's action? Yes, but that is separate and distinct from is there actually claims against the trucking company itself for being unsafe, right? Those are different claims than hey, the trucker made a mistake. The trucker's responsible, which means the motor carrier, the trucking company is responsible. That's different from the trucking company was negligent in hiring, negligent in training, negligent in supervising, negligent in retaining this driver that shouldn't have been behind the wheel of a truck. Those are separate, distinct, likely separate and distinct claims sometimes that a trucking company can be held responsible for. And what does it do? Pisses a jury off, right? So that's one side of it. Then you go to the broker side of it, right? The broker, if a broker is hiring a motor carrier that's unsafe or has shoddy safety history or no safety history versus hiring a trucking company that's got a safety history that does, like you're saying, takes the opportunity to promote its culture, promote its drivers, promote its safety, the training, whatever, all of those important things, right? That broker can't be held responsible if it did its job and it appears that in doing its job, it hired or got a trucking company involved that did care about safety, that did take care of its drivers, that did all of these things, right? So that's why I wanted to put it in three different boxes because there's different responsibilities and legally in each way you look at it. Does that help?
Yeah, sure. No, like I say, I just so often we forget about the human element, right? And that this
Right.
is my idea is that there's only so much that numbers can show you. There's only so much that like a safety rating online can show you. And I think all of this intermediation through technology, and and this thing that I wrote, I talked about going to F3, this sort of Future of Freight Festival, this thing the Freightwaves guys do, and all the software stuff that these people were selling there, a lot of it was vetting. It's like, does anybody even know who's hauling their freight anymore? Like, where is the human relationship here? I understand you might want to use a broker because you've got like a high volume shipper. Maybe it's a pain in the butt for you to deal with like a bunch of different small trucking companies. I understand that. That's a legitimate role in the market for brokers to take on that task. But like, I would think that brokers, I don't know, maybe I'm being naive. I would think that brokers should have some kind of like carrier meeting squad or something where you go and you talk to carriers instead of on the phone. You go and you meet them, you meet the drivers. Trucking companies like organize some kind of like meet and greet with like their drivers and their office staff. You have a barbecue or something, and like you meet with the brokers, and then everybody gets to sort of know each other, and it's not just numbers on the screen. Am I being quaint?
I wouldn't say you're being quaint. I think that, look, in every aspect of life, knowing who you're doing business with and knowing how those people that you're doing business with do business, that's human nature. I mean, that in every industry, that's an important aspect, but that was lost or significantly decreased or lost in the trucking industry from the explosion of what we've had over the last 10 years. So I think that I love it. I love the idea. I frankly, that's what I would want to do, or I would want to see if I was in the working on that side of the fence. It's just that time is money, so that's going to take time, and which means it's going to cost money. So that's the biggest problem you're going to run into with that approach, probably. But I mean, as a philosophy, it's the right one.
Right. Well, thank you. So since I want to bring this back to Grant. It's probably been about a year since we last spoke. I had you
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
podcast before, and I used your commentary in my book. You are cited in my book. I'm not sure if you had a chance to read it yet, but
I haven't, but I that's on my it's on my summer reading list, and I'm looking forward to it.
awesome. Well, thank you.
Yep.
What have you been up to in the last 12 months? Have you got any specific highlight cases? Has there been what's going
Oh,
on in Grant's world?
yeah. Man, not to do a disservice to all the families and people that I represent. Every case is important because it's all individual. Like, it's humanized. So everybody's cases are big and important, but of significant development. I can't remember if we talked about that really horrific Green River Tunnel incident that happened here in Wyoming, where the entire tunnel burnt up. Trapped people trapped in there,
I,
burned
I
alive.
understand that they only just recently issued charges and a warrant for the gentleman they're accusing of causing all this.
Yeah, and I would be careful. I wouldn't say caused all of it, but what this particular driver that there's now charges being issued on, what he did in causing the deaths of two people and severely injuring two others in hitting and striking that vehicle was very egregious and alarming. And so, of course, the NTSB investigation took until this spring to be conducted and be released. And so this over a year long investigative process is what took the prosecutor so long to be able to bring these charges. So all that evidence was collected, and then they had an opportunity to look at it and go, okay, this guy needs to be charged, right? And so, yeah, and that's a named defendant. Obviously, in my lawsuit, I represent the one of the young men that was killed in that crash,
Oh, are
and
you really?
his family.
I did
Hmm.
not know that. Oh,
Yep.
incredible.
Yeah. So, and of course, so I don't want to say too much because it's ongoing litigation, but
Yeah,
I mean, most of this is public knowledge, anyways, at this point, right?
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's been a significant case that's ongoing right now for me, and I guess here's one other thing I'll just point out is what I've encountered so much in the last year since I talked to you is how much the telematics systems are being used and being misused. And
Ooh,
I mean,
tell me about this misuse because telematics means
yeah,
different things to different people.
yeah,
Sometimes telematics is a useful thing, and they offer it as a training tool to try and improve driver efficiency, improve driver behavior. Sometimes, depending on who you're talking to, it might be just a surveillance technology. Um, there's some guys who are so good at what they do. I'm not sure telematics really helps them at all. But please fill us in.
yeah. No, I mean, so telematics obviously could mean a lot of things, right? It could mean everybody could have a different idea or definition of it. But basically, when I talk about telematics, I'm talking about the system in place that potentially has dash cams. It has driver safety information that's being shared and provided. It's speed, GPS, all of those things that are being recorded. And of course, that's becoming more and more
You,
adopted.
yeah, it's ubiquitous now. Yeah.
Yes, ubiquitous. It's a good way of saying it. And so, highlight of one case where I had a trucker that left California, drove all the way, was in the middle of Wyoming on I-80 when he fell asleep and crashed into my client, and was using a ghost driver, right? So he's logging two different accounts for his hours of service, and uh, he covered the driver facing camera, right? So, and during the course of litigation, the defense lawyer and the defense team claimed, oh no, there was a second driver. He just was, he was asleep in the cab, despite the fact that the at fault driver was interviewed by the cop, by medics who came to the truck. My client actually had to get into his truck after he was hit, so they could call 911 and wait for an ambulance and law enforcement show up. They attempted to continue that lie and say there was actually another driver in the truck and that those logs were not false, that there was two drivers. Um, and I'll tell you, it didn't turn out good for any of those people. But it highlighted for me as a lawyer, so the sophistication of those systems and what we have to do in order to get into the telematics systems to find out what is happening, what was recorded, because there's so much information, especially with the surveillance element. We'll call it the surveillance element. I mean, yes, I get it. I understand the personal privacy aspect of it, but I'll tell you what, if I was a trucking company, if I was a motor carrier, there wouldn't be a damn truck on the road under my authority that didn't have driver facing camera, because those alerts in that system will tell me if truck drivers are falling asleep, they're driving distracted. And those are important things because number one, you need to know who's driving for you and whether they're safe. But number two, it also could exculpate or it could help relieve this idea that the trucker did something wrong, in an event that there's a crash and that truly they didn't fall asleep or they weren't watching a movie or something worse on their iPad or their phone,
Yeah,
which, those cases are happening, of
man,
course.
the distracted driving stuff is so bad, and
So bad.
I really really hate it. I get it, man. Like I am not above being hooked to my phone like anybody else. I'm a busy person, but when you're going down the road, you gotta be paying attention to the road. Um, the
Yeah.
driver facing camera stuff is sort of hard for me because again, the human level thing. I grew up in the generation of truckers that didn't have that stuff and were expected to perform and do things correctly. And my record of service speaks for itself, right? So like, I've got
Yeah.
27 years behind the wheel, never been in a collision, never hurt anybody, never wrecked a truck. There are I am not the only person who would bristle at the suggestion that there's a camera on me all day. And there's this hard thing, right, where yes, it may absolve you in case something happens, but you're also subject to it all day. You have this thing in your truck looking at you, and that's your personal space and your office. And so there's this tension, right? Some people
Yeah.
don't mind. Some people are just like, whatever, there's a camera on me. They don't give a shit. I'm not that person. That's the kind of thing that I'm sitting there all day thinking about it because I'm big on the fact that, like, my record speaks for itself and I'm a professional. And yeah, how do we resolve that tension?
Yeah, that's a great point. And trust me, I can relate. I mean, if I had a camera on me all day, would I like it and would I want that? No. I mean, I get it. Don't. I'm not trying to be hypocritical here in any way.
You're in a
it-
courtroom though. Are court proceedings not filmed these days?
well, there's cameras everywhere. So
Yeah.
I always expect I'm being recorded at every point during the day. But no, I think, look, I think it's accepting reality. Here's reality. The good old days, the good old days of the truck driver has been lost. It's gone. Now, don't tell me that the guys like you aren't still out there doing it. There's a lot of great people and all that. But look where we're at today. I mean, when you look at the cases I work on, you're looking at people that should never have been allowed to be behind the wheel. Most times it's people that should never have been allowed to get behind the wheel of a big truck, right? And so when you're seeing that side of it, you're saying, hell, absolutely, every one of these yahoos should be being spied on by a camera, right? So I think that,
That's a licensing and barrier to entry issue.
yeah, right. Um, but I think, look, if we could get back to a place where we don't have 5,000 plus people killed on the road every year in truck crashes and hundreds of thousands of wrecks and people hurt, and we can get back to a place where it's not just the Wild West, um, you know, I would feel more confident that, look, yeah, that maybe that's not as important of an issue, but it's gotten so far, it's gotten so damn far down the wrong side of the road that, yeah, I mean, why didn't you have the camera on? Why did you block the camera? What were you doing wrong, right?
Right,
Well,
yeah.
if there was another driver in the truck, the camera sure as hell would show it. If you weren't falling asleep, the camera would show it. Those sort of things. So I see both sides. So on your side of things, you're like, hey, I don't want this camera. And for smaller owner operators or smaller companies, that may be a personal. It still is a personal choice, right? It still is a personal choice as an owner whether you have that. Now, what you're gonna see though, and if you haven't seen this already, if I'm an insurance company, why would I insure a motor carrier that doesn't have video camera systems,
All right,
right?
let me flip that on its head. Here's something. Okay, so when I was researching my book, and I think I talked to you about this, I had a hard time getting insurance companies to talk to me.
Oh,
My
I can imagine.
my friend Rob, who's a writer, and he works for this outfit called Truck Safe, and he's worked on cases, and he's on like
Is
all
that
sides.
Carpenter?
Yeah,
Yeah, I know
yeah,
Rob. I've
yeah.
and yes, he's good. He's a good guy, man.
He's
Thanks
good.
for bringing that up.
Yeah, he's really good dude. He writes at Freight Waves and he does all kinds of stuff. He sort of told me a little bit about like what's going on here with these new entrants to the commercial insurance market, like Progressive and Geico, and the instant issue policies with like no vetting, no actuarial risk analysis
Yes.
going on, right? So like here's my critique of the insurance side of this. So you bring up a very good point. Why would an insurer issue a commercial policy to somebody without one of these cameras in the truck? My question is, why would a commercial insurer issue a policy to a trucking company that's got a bunch of rookies working for them that showed up here from Uzbekistan or Guatemala or the Punjab yesterday and have no history of service in the United States? Why is it they're worried about putting a camera in front of me when they could just tell these, I'm sorry, muling fucking cabbages that are gangsters parasitizing themselves on the trucking industry, just don't issue those guys policies. Why are you doing that? Why are you making my life difficult and allowing those people into the market?
Yeah, man. Money, money talks and bullshit walks. Scored, and here's where it's a game of numbers. If you're a progressive out there or one of these insurers, it if you can issue enough policies, no matter how many of these crashes happen, you're still making a lot of money as an insurance company. And so that's the easy answer. It's greed, man. They make
The,
a ton of money
so
doing this.
they're doing the scale overcomes the risk. Is that a good way of putting it?
Absolutely. Yes, that's exactly it, man. I mean, you issue enough policies, it, the risk of, hey, and we know some of these clown shows are going to go out there and kill people. We're going to get hit with huge settlements, nuclear verdicts, oh God, all of those things. Man, who cares? To them, hey, we're still our ROI, our return on the investment of issuing all of these policies is so big, and it's good for our shareholders and it's good for our stock price. Sadly, that's capitalism, right? That's capitalism. That's how it works. And so that's why you have these insurance companies doing that, because they make money. They wouldn't do it if they weren't making a lot of money. There's no other purpose. They don't exist without that.
And then they punish the good guys.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They punish the good guys, right? And so that is probably one of the areas that I am the most critical about. That look, if we wanted to make big change at the top, talking about from at the level of the federal government, FMCSA down, is forcing changes with the insurance companies. And I'll tell you what, especially increasing the insurance minimums. If these insurance companies are on the hook for higher minimums, the MCS 90 number goes way up. Boy, they're gonna start caring a lot more about vetting who the hell they're giving these policies to.
So do you mean that 750,000 base minimum? That's a very contentious number,
Yes, I do.
right?
Absolutely.
So if I remember correctly, you are on team that number should be much higher.
Absolutely. Not only because of 750, it's been in place now for, let's see here, how old am I? I'm 47. It came out a year after I was born, I think, in 1980. So 46 years, 40 46 years that it's been at 750,000. Do you know what $750,000 was in 1980 compared to what $750,000 is today?
Oh, between
You would go,
the dollar devaluation and the cost of everything, holy cow!
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's nothing when you're talking about a serious accident with serious injuries and the medical expenses. So that's one side of it, right? But number two is look, a barrier of entry, so to speak. You shouldn't be able to go out and get a 750 $1 million policy that easy, but you can. it sure as hell would be a different story if we're talking $5 million or some other bigger number, right? That insurance companies are going to have to blink. They're not just going to be just throwing these policies out. They're actually going to do their job. Let's make them do their damn job, right? That they're not just giving the guy that just got off the boat a insurance policy to drive an 80,000 pound missile down the road.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir here, man. Um, so when you get around to reading my book, you'll
Yeah.
notice as soon as you open it, I dedicate it to this guy named Marty Paddock, who is a teacher, a brother of guys I worked for. I worked for Marty part time, but I mostly worked for his brothers. But he read my Substack, and he was both a supporter and a very harsh critic of me and the things I said. And but he employed me and my dad, and he's been a lifelong friend. And he passed away last fall. But he did provide commentary for my book, and one of the things he said was that the government is incapable of properly regulating the trucking industry, and what used to govern it was this: you could not get financing for trucks if you could not show any experience or competency to lenders. And he said
Mm,
that's gone because they got greedy. They'll give money to anybody. He
right.
says you could not be in business because the banks wouldn't give you the small business loans in order to keep your operation going for the same reasons. Then the banks got greedy and they don't give a shit. And then he said it
Right.
was insurance. He said nobody would insure you if you had no record of service, if you were employing morons, if you didn't have your things together, nobody would insure you. And now that's gone. So Marty took the same sort of opinion you are about how these other companies, these sort of, a chapter of my book is called Necessary Parasites. All of these business service providers to the trucking industry,
Right.
which helped make it happen, all of them got greedy and basically eliminated any of their own vetting, which allowed all
Yeah.
kinds of bad actors to get into the business. Never mind the government. I mean, we can blame the government all day long, but you ain't going anywhere without money. You ain't going anywhere without insurance. And the
Yep.
lenders and the insurance companies have abandoned any pretense of being selective about any of this stuff.
Man. Amen. Amen. So yeah, I don't know how that changes, Gord. I mean, I think that's the problem is that we've only got so much power, to make change. Uh, look, I mean, at the end of the day, my mission is if there's not another family that comes to me with one of their loved ones who was killed on the road, great. Like I told you, man, I'll go raise golden retriever. I'll go start breeding golden retrievers. That'd be my dream job. Cause just out there playing with golden retrievers all day, and fishing and hunting and riding my motorcycle and my bikes with my boy. I mean, all those things that I actually, want to do. Look, and yeah, the cynical way is, oh, you can do that, Greg. You don't have to do. Well, look, man, God called me to do what I'm doing. I'm doing a service, and my service isn't done, and so I take that very serious.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you taking it seriously, sir, because again, one of the reasons I had you back on, I was very impressed last time we talked about the fact that like you're realistic about this, and truckers need defense from other truckers, and like you clearly understand the difference between the good guys and the bad guys, and you want to help, and like again, as I started the show out with, like everybody always invokes the billboard attorneys as this like, this force in American society because of the litigious nature of the sort of court system, and anybody can sue anybody here in America, which is different in other parts of the world. But like shit happens, and people deserve to have representation, and people deserve to have justice to them. After I talked to you, I talked to another lawyer down in Atlanta, a guy named Jeremy Citron, and he
Hmm.
said many of the same things. He's like, "Look, man, like these things happen.
no, the only justice we can assess, you can't bring back a dead person, you can't reattach a decapitated limb, you can't rebuild a car that got destroyed. All you have is money. That's it. Like
Yep.
it's people get cynical about the money aspect of this and the dollar signs, and then they attach that cynicism to the industry of lawyers who duke this stuff out in court. But
Yep.
Jeremy made a very good point. Money is all you've got. Like
That's all
no
we got.
no one's bringing back your loved ones. No one's bringing back your lost time. No one's bringing back your damaged equipment. All you got is money. That's it. You
Yep.
know?
Yeah, I mean, that's the civil justice system, and for most of the clients that I represent, the anger aspect is, there's a demand for accountability. Well, we don't have any power to do anything criminally. There's no eye for an eye, system that these family members get to go and inflict harm on those who killed a family member or tragically injured them or whatever. Our justice system is based on money. That's all we're allowed to get for family members. I mean, that's the way it is. And for right or wrong, justice is measured by money. It's money justice, right? And so, look, and I'll be the first one to say there's a lot of bad actors, a lot of lawyers out there who are bad actors. There's billboard lawyers out there, uh, I'm sure, that are not great people. They're not great in their messaging. They maybe are not doing things ethically. I'm sure that exists, but the reality is that everybody hates lawyers until they need one, and
Yeah,
then
exactly.
that's and then you
Everybody
know
hates truckers until they have to go to the grocery store.
right. Yeah, that's a good point. A good point. And so I mean, the way I view my job is like a guardian angel that has to come in and fight for those who I've had so many clients that will admit, yeah, I hate lawyers, and I've always hated lawyers, but I thank God that I've got you, and that's why I do what I do. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a big difference between those who actually care about what they do and care about the people that they fight for, and those that are just doing it for money. I mean, we're always going to have that. And doesn't matter if it's lawyers, doesn't matter if it's the trucking industry, doesn't matter what it is. You're always going to have that problem.
Right. Yeah. Well, reality is what it is, and there's no way of getting around it. So,
Right. Yep.
Mr. Lawson, you've been very kind with your time. Is there any final parting message you might have here before we part ways?
You know, for any of your listeners who don't, wondering who's this guy you're talking to, if they ever want to, if they want information on me, go check out, my website is www.truckaccidents.com. You can get information about who I am, what I stand for. So it puts a little context to what you're listening to.
Right. Yeah. And like I say, everybody needs representation at some point. If some tragedy befalls you, and you want to have one of the good guys, and I really appreciate you coming on to work through this ruling from the Supreme Court, and keep on keeping on, sir. I appreciate, trucking is not just about going down the road, moving A to B. There's a whole bunch of other stuff going on in the background, and we need people to keep their eyes on things. And I appreciate your services in that regard, sir.
Yeah, well, hey, Gord, I appreciate what you do, and I keep on keeping on as well. And I look forward to the next time we get a chance to talk. So thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you, sir, and way the road.